Hi everyone, and welcome to CBRE FlexCast, our thought leadership docuseries where we feature the pioneers of Indian flex industry and bring their stories, vision and capabilities to the world. I'm Pulkit Bakshi, Head Flexible Workspace Solutions at CBRE India, and today I'm outside an office facility in Bangalore, where we shall be meeting the office leadership and exchanging notes on the future of flex in India. So with that quick introduction, let's finally meet Mr. Amit Ramani, who is the founder and CEO at Awfis, and kickstart this episode. Hi Amit, good to see you again.
Welcome to Awfis.
Thank you. Welcome to CBRE FlexCast.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amit, would you like to tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and the origin story of this company?
So Pulkit, the origin, in terms of the story goes back to my visit to Chicago. It's a flex space called 1871, right? And when I went there in 2014, I was like very amazed as to how the whole workspace had evolved, right? And was interesting to see that there were not only just startups and SMEs, but there were large corporations that were situated there. And I thought, well, something like this could really work well in India. And so on that flight back from US to India, I wrote the paper business plan and then went to our first set of investors and raised the first 18 crores, and that's where the journey started. In terms of my background, obviously, went to School of Planning Architecture, went to Kansas State for a master's in architecture, then went to Cornell for a master's in real estate, and worked in the US for a few years. And interestingly, in 2001, when I graduated, 9/11 happened.
Oh.
So a lot of what we hear about, these alternate work environments, flex space, hybrid space, distributed work, kind of came through because people were in the same fear that people were not able to come to an office, so they had to figure out business continuity plans, have different options of satellite locations, hub and spoke location, all of what we hear. So that's where kind of the journey in some ways started. Worked for a company called HOK where we did a lot of this, then joined a company called Nelson, which we grew to a large top 5 design firm globally. Then came to India, set up a design and build business, which still continues. And then we started Awfis in 2015. But had some bit of background and experience in this space before we started the journey, because ultimately when you're talking about flex space, it's about creating a great environment where people can come and you're offering them flexibility, right? And we were doing all of this, but we were doing it for third-party occupiers, right? Before. So I had a lot of experience in how to build great spaces. We just obviously transcended the model of flex. At that point, it used to be called co-working, and into this kind of a model.
Great, right? And you said it's been what now, 8 years, right, since you started in 2015?
Correct.
Right, and that time it was called co-working. So how do you think has this entire industry evolved in India since you started? What is different today from back then?
So when we started initially, Pulkit, it used to be seen as a startup and a SME ecosystem, right? That's primarily the early adopters who came in, because the challenge was to find good infrastructure and be able to get into a plug-and-play environment was a big deal for some of these individuals and some of these smaller companies. Larger companies already had the setup, so they were not early adopters, right? So the first few years, it used to be all about these smaller cohorts, smaller companies. Now, clearly, when COVID happened, a lot of people saw flexibility, a lot of people saw speed as a core. A lot of people said, let me convert my capital into an operating kind of a system, and the enterprises came in. So last 3 years, it's evolved quite a bit where now it's clearly not just about the smaller cohorts, but even larger cohorts. As we've seen, people are taking up 500,000, many more seats. So I think that's been the big change, that the large enterprises came in a big way. Second, the industry evolved, right? I mean, from an industry standpoint, when we started, there were like 5 or 6 operators. Today, there are, I think, 300 operators, out of which 50 are established,
Right.
and 10 top operators today have 80% of the market share. So I think there is clearly a transition that's happened on larger players, obviously controlling a large portion of the market share, but there is a whole bunch of players that are there. Industry-wise, the adoption has grown up to a level where today we are the second largest after IT, ITS in terms of new space take-up, right? And obviously, we work with our friends at CBRE on many of those transactions, both on the demand and supply side.
Right.
But I think clearly being 20 to 30% of conventional, new space take up, commercial real space take up, it becomes certainly an established industry. And because the demand has mushroomed, I think a lot of people are now clearly seeing. Early days we had to explain what is co-working. Now I don't have to go and explain to anybody even on the street what co-working stands for. I think the industry evolved, and in India found its own niche on what is co-working for India, what is flex for India, because I think there were a lot of global models. But I think clearly what has been very, very fulfilling is that indigenous kind of an approach with a lot of other players as well have developed something that works really well for India. And I think that's why the adoption in India is probably one of the largest in the world at this stage, I feel. And where I feel this industry is slowly evolving towards, I think flex is now clearly part of commercial real estate strategy of most companies. Right? Clearly, I think there have been many reports, CBRE has done, many other IPCs have done, and everybody is saying flex is here to stay. Everybody is saying flex is clearly part of a core strategy. We are also hearing that flex is, in some cases, the only strategy for some of the mid-sized corporates, right? So they are moving their HOs into this location. So I think when you see that happening, where 2015 there were 2-3 players, and today there are 300 plus players, and the industry has evolved so much, it's quite heartening to see where. And I feel that the journey has just started. We are at the ground floor of an opportunity where a skyscraper needs to be built in this space.
Wow, no, absolutely couldn't agree with you more on the potential of the growth of this industry further. But like you mentioned, right, there's some 300 odd operators now in the market, even though like 51s are the ones really sort of leading it. But how do you differentiate yourself in still such a crowded market, and what's your edge over your very capable peers as per you?
So, Pulkit, clearly the industry is so large that I think all of us will do well, right? So, and I think, but everybody, just like you look at any industry, right? They kind of find their differentiation factor, their own niche. I think that similarly, I think from our standpoint, we believe that the network will play a big role, right? Even pre-COVID, we believe that the India growth and infrastructure will not keep pace with each other. And because of that, we will have commute challenges. People will not want to travel 3 hours every day. So we were always about, how do we establish that an AWFIS center is available within a 15-minute driving radius in all major metro cities, right? And so idea was that, when you're hungry, you think about McDonald's. When you want to work, you should think about office.
Okay.
And from that standpoint, we were about 50 locations pre-COVID, March of 20. Today, we are touching 150 locations, almost 85 plus thousand seats today, 17 cities. So we are very, very confident that the network is a big differentiator. What you see here is a product which is one part of our mobility product suite. And this kind of a space provides, SMEs, startups, people who want to work near home, an option to book it on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and just completely transforms this whole idea of a neighborhood office, right? When I need it, I get it, right? I don't have to travel 2 hours to get to my HO location. If I want to work 2 days from this kind of a space, I can do it, right? And today, a lot of corporations are encouraging their employees not to travel 2 hours every day. There's income for 2-3 days, but I'm not mandating you to come for 5 days. So this kind of a product makes sense. This is a community table where, people can just come and work for an hour or a day and book it. And so I think that's the kind of what we feel is a big differentiator. One is the network. Second, for us, we understood that there is a asset liability mismatch, right? Because if somebody is taking space on, let's say 5 or 6 years kind of a lock, and the customer is coming in for, let's say, a day to, let's say, 2 years maximum, the asset liability mismatch. So we said, well, how do we overcome that? So we said, well, we termed it as managed aggregation. The acronym did exist before, but we termed it such. And the idea is very simple. We want to partner with our landlords. Today, out of 150 locations, almost about 75% of that is in partnership with the landlord. And it is a win-win, because if you really look at it, today developers in a building have a creche, they have a gym, they might have even an ATM, etc., or a cafe. That's an amenity, right? So we feel that we are an amenity, so we fit in with that model. And Our center sizes are smaller, about 30,000 average. Now, what that does is it essentially allows us to partner with a landlord and then diversify our risk, right? So I think that's the second. Third, we focus on B2B and B2C, right? A lot of the industry have moved towards larger cohorts, right? For us, it was important that we should address a person who needs one seat or a person who needs 1,000 seats. Now, the person who needs one seat wants it yesterday, right?
Yeah.
The person who needs 1,000 understand nobody's sitting with 1,000 seats vacant,
Correct.
so they will wait. So from that standpoint, I think we are very focused on B2C and B2B. So less than 100 seats is 50% of our business. More than 100 seats is 50% of our business. So that's the third piece. Fourth, I think design is important. I think you can see this center. It's one of our brand new centers. Very proud of what's come out. I think some of my background in design probably comes through. This is version 5 of our design, right? So we are very conscious on listening to the customer and figuring out what works or doesn't work, right? So it's not that if I like this tool or not, does my customer really like this tool, right? And we've taken that feedback and we keep evolving this design and will continue to evolve, right? So I think design is clearly the fourth piece for us. Also, we understood that the market is not just about one size fits all, right? So we, just like in the market, you have a Toyota Corolla. So our office product is a Toyota Corolla. We have what we call as Office Gold, which is kind of a Toyota Camry, right? So we service 90% of the market, a value-focused product, which is affordable for people. So we kind of look at it as, in some ways, affordable luxury. It's great, but it just doesn't cost you a bomb, right? So we are not in that top tier segment, but 90% of the industry we cover. I think, and because of the design evolution, I think the market, the brand ethos has changed quite a bit. Because when the enterprises came in, they were asking us to, push up the envelope when it came to design. And I think today, over the last 3 years, I'm very proud that all of the design solutions that we provide today can match any global workplace outlook today.
So Amit, you've clearly come a long way, right, since you started, and so has this company. So what's the new vision for this company for you, and does it also include going international?
So Pulkit, clearly, I think, when we started, as I mentioned earlier, we were, focused on SMEs. Today we service everybody. The idea is to create a great workspace, right, that's available at an affordable price for everybody who's part of the workforce in India, right? So, and to that end, we will build one of the largest networks in the country. And, second, I think, is to be at the cutting edge of the solutions that we are providing, be it our design, be it our technology enablement, be it our availability when people need it to use the space. And third, clearly, is to create a workspace that evolves with time, right? When hybrid changed, the me and we spaces started changing in terms of the modularity. And I think we want to make sure that it resonates with everybody in India. Going global, the answer is no. And the reality is very simple, right? I mean, all of Vietnam put together is equal to a Pune in terms of commercial real estate market. So why would I go outside India when there is so much opportunity in India? And I think the India stack is strong. Next year, 10 years are India's story, and we want to maximize that and be a strong player in this space.
Makes sense. And Amit, this has been a very engaging and insightful discussion, as all of them are with you. And thank you so much for answering all of my questions so candidly. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode of CBRE FlexCast. We shall see you soon again with another episode in the Office Edition with Mr. Sumit Lakhani. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Pulkit, and thank you, CBRE.
Thanks, Amit.